Hey, everybody, welcome into the Volquest podcast every Tuesday here at Volquest.com and on the Volquest YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, Christmas just right around the corner. You can get a Volquest.com one-year subscription for only $10. A great Christmas gift to get that Vol fan in your family, in your circle of friends. $10 for 1 year at Volquest.com. I'm Eric Kane with Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, and Rob Lewis. Plenty to discuss here on this Tuesday edition of the podcast. Guys, it was early Monday morning. The Senior Bowl, the Reese's Senior Bowl, tweeted out that Darnell Wright had accepted his invitation to play in the All-Star game. So that essentially means Darnell Wright will go to the NFL, but Austin Price looks like he is going to play in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, he's indicated to people on staff he intends to play in the Orange Bowl. Darnell really, kind of struggled with the decision on whether to go or stay. But I mean, accepting the invitation to the Senior Bowl, certainly lends itself to, leaning that way. It doesn't officially lock you in. If he wanted to still come back, he could. But it certainly feels like it's trending hard towards the NFL. But Darnell, I think, has always kind of wanted to play in a big bowl game like this. This is very intriguing to him to play in the Orange Bowl. And going against some really quality D linemen from Clemson, this is a real challenge and a real opportunity to show what he can do. He's already done that against Will Anderson, against B.J. Ojulari. This is another opportunity for him against some quality D linemen for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, I think the other thing, too, is for people who don't know Darnell is in a great place in Darnell's world right now. He's in a great place in life. He loves Glenn Ellerbe. He's really enjoying being in college and being at Tennessee. I think he's going to end up going to the NFL with you. I'm with you, AP, because from a business standpoint, that probably makes the most sense. But from an emotional standpoint, Darnell Wright is as happy in college and doing what he's doing right now as he's ever been, and is as comfortable as he's ever been, Austin. And I think that's something that's caused that struggles because he just feels very comfortable here. And for Darnell, getting comfortable with people and getting comfortable in a setting is not always the easiest thing for him. And I think that's why this decision has been and continues to be a bit hard for him.
Yeah, and he's really comfortable. I mean, he's super tight with Cooper, and you're right. He loves Glenn Ellerbe. Those two have bonded so well. It's nothing that he didn't, hate Will Friend, but I feel like when Will Friend left, Darnell saw that as a real opportunity to grow. And, I think he embraced that change as much as anybody on this football program, and he ran with it. And admittedly, when he was on Ball Club Confidential a few weeks ago, said, I wasn't sure at first because I'm slow to trust. But, once he kind of saw what Glenn Ellerbe was about, it was all in. And, I mean, outside of Jalin Hyatt, has anybody improved more in 2 years under this staff than Darnell?
No, but I was going to say that, some people will be not the mass majority, but you'll hear some people quibble. Well, Josh Heupel's winning with Jeremy Pruitt's players. Jalin Hyatt, Blitnikoff. Neither of those guys or other people on the team had even come close to to realizing their potential to that degree. And my comeback to people who would pick at that is you better win with somebody else's players, or you're not going to be here in 4 years when you have a roster of your own recruits. I mean, that's imperative.
Yeah, and I think Darnell, I think you can make the case that he has improved more than anybody else in this program. And I mean, Jalin Hyatt's a guy who always had the talent. He lacked a little confidence, and I'm not saying Jalin Hyatt hasn't improved, but because he has. But from where Darnell was, lack of confidence, body out of shape, and everything else, I don't know that he may have come further than anybody in this program has come since the arrival of Josh Heupel and his staff. I'm impressed with what he has accomplished, and how much better he has fundamentally gotten under Glenn Ellerbe. I mean, he has really gotten better, really improved.
Yeah, and to Rob's point, I mean, anybody that's talking about winning with Jeremy's players, yeah, just like Jeremy won with Butch's players. I mean, in 2019 when Tennessee went 7-5, who were Tennessee's best players? They're all Butch's guys. When you come in, you better be winning with the previous guys' players. or you're not making any progress. So,
well, and here's the thing Josh Heupel deserves credit for is they were never Jeremy Pruitt's players. When Josh Heupel got on campus,
they treat them all the same.
Hours upon being on campus, several days upon being on campus, they were Josh Heupel's players. There was never, Eric, that divide. He never told people to go jump in the portal and get out of town and in this type of thing. I mean, he embraced those guys, understood what they were looking for, understood what they needed from a relationship standpoint. And from that moment on, they were Josh Heupel's guys because they were Tennessee's football players. They weren't Jeremy Pruitt's football players or some previous coach's football players.
So he didn't come in and tell him he's bringing in Louis and tell him to hit the portal.
And you know who else did that? And if you're going to make a quick turnaround, you've got to do that. And he had a lot of faults, but I tell you, Bruce Pearl did the same thing when he came in with Dane Bradshaw, Jawan Smith. Guys that he inherited, they were, he wasn't looking for ways to get rid of them or run them off. He was like, what can I turn these guys into that is the best fit for us? Which I think, there aren't a lot of parallels between Josh Heupel and Bruce Pearl, but that's one of them right there. Figuring out what you've got and how you can win with it instead of complaining about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Gary Patterson says hello. The guys he recruited is in the college football playoff right now. But again, to your point, Tony Dykes comes in, you buy into a vision, you buy into a program. That's Dykes' team, obviously, and that's the same thing here. With Josh Heupel.
I just don't see how you do it any other way. In this day and age with the transfer portal and everything else, I just don't see how you can do it without saying, hey, we're family, you're my guy, and go from there. I'm not saying you're begging guys to stay, but I don't think you can give off a lot of vibes that says, hey, you're not one of us, and kind of create a natural divide that way. I just don't know how you succeed in doing it if that's what your plan is.
So with Darnell Wright accepting his invitation to the Senior Bowl, Austin, nothing really changes, right? Tennessee, I think, would like to get an offensive tackle from the transfer portal. You do have, of course, Joe Mincy and J.J. Crawford on the roster right now. Dane Davis is a guy that has stepped in and filled in before. But I think Tennessee, if one makes sense, would like to bring in an offensive tackle to play either left or right via the transfer portal, then get one on campus.
Yeah, if they can get the right guy. Obviously, they went Larry Johnson here in the last week and a half, and
he looks like a guard, Austin, does he not?
No, again, I'm not a talent evaluator. I never have been a talent evaluator. I am a information gatherer. I can tell you what I see with my own eyes. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but the people in the recruiting department, whether it was Scott Altizer running it 20 years ago, or Bob Welton or Jeremy Staff or this one, like, they see it differently than I see it or you see it or fans see it. But that's all they look at every day. That's their job. So, they're looking at ankles and bone density and all that stuff that we always make light of. But that's a real thing that they look at stuff like that, and the ability to push off with this foot or that foot and all these things. So, again, you better hope that he's some type of player, because you're going the JUCO route. You expect him to come in and play right away. They can't afford for him to take a year like J.J. Crawford did. Now, Crawford got here at the last possible minute 2 years ago and really just was set up, to not be able to factor. Johnson shouldn't be that way. Johnson should have more time to develop under the staff before next season gets here, which should give him an opportunity. Like I said, though, you need somebody to take a step forward, whether that's Crawford in his final year, Mincy, Dane Davis, Larry Johnson, do one of those other younger tackles, figure it out, and kind of, take a step forward this offseason. You need that because, you made it kind of work at left tackle this year with kind of a, rotation there between Mincy and Crawford, and you knew you had the right side locked down. That right side has got one game left, and then he's off to the NFL. So you got to figure that out. That's very, very important because, Joe's new at quarterback. I know he's got some experience, but he's still new at quarterback. You're going to have a lot of new bodies on this offense. You need some type of staple there outside of Cooper and Spraggs.
Well, here's the other thing, too, that shouldn't get lost when you talk about Darnell Wright, which I think could actually help him with his NFL stock, Rob. That's the durability factor.
Yes.
The guy didn't miss.
No.
You look at the other side, Mincy was banged up for better part of almost half the year. Crawford's had some injury issues along the way as well, and they've just kind of sort of managed those two together. It was anchored down on the right side because, one, Darnell Wright was their best tackle for sure, and two, his durability factor I think the NFL is going to love because the guy has just been fortunate enough to not have to deal with anything injury-wise.
Yeah, I think that's an underrated aspect of not just how effective he was able to be, but of why he'll be attractive at the next level. Because maybe it's luck, but I mean, this is a guy who was more or less a 4-year starter, and really, I mean, some guys are just built different. I mean, Eric, you played. I mean, some guys are just everybody freak things can happen, but some guys are more injury prone than others. And Darnell's got a body of work that says he's not going to suffer, have a tweaked ankle or a sore foot or just all these little minor nicks and bruises are going to cost him time.
Yeah, and Eric, to the transfer portal part, I'm sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I wanted you finish up on Rob's point. To the transfer portal question you asked, I think the only thing you can take is a tackle body. I don't think you need to take another interior guy. Whoever if you take somebody in the portal on the offensive line, he better be a clear-cut offensive tackle, Eric.
Oh, 100%. Again, you've got a guard heavy in this class that's about to come in. You've got guards that are on the roster right now. You only have one offensive tackle in this class about to come in. And again, we spoke on, Johnson. He slated in as a tackle, but I think it looks more like a guard. I mean, you better go get a tackle if you're going to bring anybody else in, 100%. And one more thing on Darnell Wright. I mean, he's shown he can play right side. He started the entire last season on the left side. He's played, I want to say he's made 5 to 6 starts at right guard early in his career as well. So, I mean, if you're an NFL scout, you're just sitting there like, man, this guy doesn't miss games. He's durable. He's versatile. He's played at a high level across the line of scrimmage. He's got a lot of things going for him. So, Darnell Wright accepts his invitation to the Senior Bowl. What else could we see this week? Jalin Hyatt, we spoke with him after the Biletnikoff Award winner last week. Here's what Jalin Hyatt had to say about decisions coming up this week and how he hopes to have something for Tennessee fans and something to put out there publicly at some point this week.
I have to talk to my family and the coaching staff. We're still 50-50 on some things. And, I'll have a decision next week for everybody. And but as far as, those are two things I have to weigh in, the receiving record and just playing with the team and or leaving. And, I'm taking into consideration hard, with my family and coaches, but we'll have a decision next week. You have to weigh in both options. Do you think, as far as scouting wise, do you feel like you're ready for the league? Do you think you need to come back? What is NIL? What is NIL pushing? And as far as leaving, what round? What is your evaluation? What does the scouts think about you? It's a lot of things that, I have to take into consideration and would do patiently doing it, with my family and coaches. And, I just want to credit Coach Hype of, just helping me through the process and helping me make the right decision, for me and my future.
And that was Jalin Hyatt. Brent, it looks like we're going to hear something one way or the other if he's going to go to the NFL, if he's going to stay at Tennessee, if he'll play in the Orange Bowl. Man, I continue to look at these mock drafts, continue to read these evaluators who are smarter than me. Feels like he's going to be a high draft pick, and I think that's going to be tough to walk away from.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we had his dad, Jamie Hyatt, on Rocky Top Rewind on Sunday night. Austin, I think you had Jalin on Sunday night as well. I mean, a decision's been made. It's just a matter of what day they're going to announce. There's nothing in an NFL mock draft that suggests Jalin Hyatt should be coming back to school. At least not anything I've seen.
And nothing that will suggest that he should play in this bowl game. So that should tell you all you need to know. Tennessee fans need to be happy that Bruce should be back for this bowl game. Ramel Keaton's basically been a pseudo starter all year. So in reality, you're just replacing the slot when you roll out there against Clemson. Brew, Ramel, and then probably Squirrel. Let's see what they do with Chaz Nimrod when they've got a month to prepare. Do they kind of slide him inside some? What do they do with Walker Merrill? That's going to be the wide receivers that Joe is working with in this Orange Bowl.
So with that, Tennessee still, I mean, it's been pretty, it looks like Tennessee's been trying to find a wide receiver in the transfer portal. Could that be Thornton out of Oregon? Could that be Rara Davis? I forgot his name, from Mississippi State. Yeah. Tennessee looks like it wants a wide receiver in the transfer portal. And if so, you'd like to get him on campus. So this weekend, Austin, could be potential in seeing if anybody can be on campus.
Yeah, I mean, Ra Thomas is a real possibility to visit, here soon. Thornton indicated he may visit here soon. Also, when I spoke to him a couple of days ago, indicated he may wait till January. He's not in a super big rush. And I said, how real is it? And he goes, oh, my interest in Tennessee is very real. And he goes, man, the top offense in the country. Throw it all around. I mean, he understands what they do here, and I think he saw what Jalin did. I think he saw what Brew did coming from the Pac-12 into this league this year, and so I think it'll be interesting to see because Thomas, Thornton, they're not working on the same timeline, I don't believe. So is it kind of one of those like if you really wanted Thornton but Thomas wants in, you just taking him because you can't wait, and end up with nothing. I mean, like I think that's what you could potentially see here in a lot of this. But definitely something I think that Tennessee is very, very locked in on. And then, we'll see. I mean, I think Tennessee could take a swing at Marshawn Lloyd, the running back from South Carolina who went into the portal on Monday. I think that's a real possibility. And then we'll also see what they do at other positions. But ultimately, every fan's going to go, what about the defense, Hubbard? I mean, we're adding all these offensive guys. What about the defense?
Well, and again, I think the defensive movement, if there is movement in the portal for defense, is going to come post bowl game.
Yep.
That's kind of what it feels like is going on, and we'll see. Where it's at. There is there more movement on Tennessee's roster post bowl game, and kind of where things are shaking out from there. You're also going to have a chance to see your midterm guys for several days in bowl practice, and there'll be some evaluation there to say, do you think this guy can help sooner rather than later? Because we've talked about it. The corner position is a position that you think you can come in, a guy can come in early and be a factor as a freshman. So what does Jordan Matthews look like? What does Christian Conyers look like? I mean, those things will be factors into the bowl practice that could assess kind of what Tennessee thinks and what they look at, and then who stays and who doesn't stay post bowl game. Rob, I think one of the more fascinating things about the transfer portal is just what Austin's talking about. There is no set timeline. I mean, you have a deadline, right? Be in school at midterm, but some guys want to take, whenever something jumps at them that they like, they jump right on it, right? We saw that the kid from Louisville, the defensive lineman that committed to Florida over the weekend. We saw that out of Castles, the UC Davis tight end transfer that Tennessee essentially offered and got almost an immediate commitment from. That puts coaches in an interesting spot because you got a pecking order. But, do you wait and take a chance on missing out the guy you think may be second on your list? Do you take second on your list and say, hey, let's take that and roll with it? All about roster management. December roster management is as challenging as anything a college football coach is going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's an aspect of it, Hubbard, a lot of people haven't talked about, but it's certainly in play and influencing decisions. Because it's not like, you take a commitment from a high school kid in June and then maybe get him to camp. I mean, you got a lot of time to decide whether or not that was the right decision you wanted to make, and either party can decide they made a mistake and go separate ways. But no, I mean, you're under the gun here. I mean, you're offering, boom, take a commit, and that kid's part of your program, and all of a sudden you're out on player X at the same position. So yeah, that's a wrinkle of it that I don't think I appreciated the first time around. But and maybe just because Tennessee's in a different position. But yeah, you can definitely see it being something that coaches have to weigh right now.
It's been over a week since Alex Golesh left Tennessee to take over as head coach at South Florida, and I think it's apparent that Josh Heupel's not really in any type of hurry to fill that void, whether it is to hire an offensive coordinator or to go out and hire a tight ends coach, bring on staff, and then maybe promote from within and then call plays himself. Is there anything new with what's going on with bringing another coach on staff here in the last couple of days, Brent?
No, I don't have anything new. I mean, Austin may jump in here. I just don't think that there's a timeline there. Certainly the coach is not going to be a factor in terms of bowl prep. I think where Tennessee's at, I think Ethan Davis is certainly comfortable with Tennessee. I don't think that there's a concern. You got to get a coach in to make sure he's okay with everything. I don't think that's a factor. I don't know that there's another tight end in the portal right now that Tennessee is just guy over. I know there's the kid from Shorter University, Austin, that's still out there. But I don't. That one doesn't feel like they're in a hurry to try to get anything done there with that one. I don't think he's waiting because of a lack of tight end coach. So as a result, I don't want to say Josh Heupel's put it on the back burner because I think he's doing his research on it. But when you look at his schedule, what we've just talked about, look at his week last week, Austin, right? I mean, he was back across the country 3 times last week. It's hard to do a lot of interviews when you look at the schedule he's running right now.
Yeah, people don't understand. He was in Vegas for the Hall of Fame. He was with Nico. Then he was in Miami for the Orange Bowl press conference. And then he had to do a hobnob deal with a bunch of, people at the Orange Bowl where he and Dabo just kind of hung out and, hung out with
executives,
sponsors and executives and stuff. Then he flies up to Atlanta, does some more in-homes, has lightning in the area, can't fly out. And he and Rodney Garner and Willie Martinez got to drive back through the night. Like, yeah, he can make phone calls. Hype is not one of those guys that makes a lot of phone calls amongst a bunch of other people. He's kind of more of a hey, I'm going to do this, behind the doors and, that type of thing. I do think that Tennessee in some form or fashion will talk to Jeff Ferris at UCLA, who is a Knoxville Catholic grad who coached with David Cutcliffe at Duke. I believe in some form or fashion they will have some type of talks with him. Now, will that be the direction they go? We'll see. Who knows? Again, I just think that this is still very much in its infancy stages. And, we could end up being wrong, Hubs. He could come out tomorrow and announce somebody, but I just don't see it. And at this point, if it ain't by early next week, it's probably not happening until January.
And you know what this highlights to me, and we've talked about it a little bit amongst ourselves, it's just how it's kind of a luxury when your head coach totally owns one side of the football when you get in this position. If Nick Saban loses a defense coordinator, it is not a big story. They're going to be just fine. Same situation here where, it's Heupel's offense, so the hire just doesn't carry the gravity, that it would in a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, if Todd Monken gets a job at Georgia, that's a very different deal because Kirby Smart's such a defensive guy. And the direction they go there on offense, if that were to happen, would be very different. Same thing if Tim Banks, were to leave here or there was a defensive opening here. It's got a different vibe to it than Tennessee losing an offensive staff member because of what you mentioned, Rob, the fact that the head coach is such an offensive guy. He can coach any position in his offense. He'll be very hands-on, with everything they do on the practice field with the offense, as he always is, but he'll be even more hands-on with the tight ends through bowl preparation and then go from there. The other thing, too, is, Josh Heupel is very protective of his offense. So he's not going to interview 12 people and start breaking down his offense and, all of those things. He's going to have guys and he's going to talk X's and O's with those guys just, and get a feel for him that way. But he's pretty guarded about his offense. I don't know that Josh Heupel, Austin, is the best clinic guy for coaches out there to come and listen to, because I think he's pretty protective and pretty guarded about what they're doing on offense. He's not giving away a lot of trade secrets.
Yeah, even back last year when they were trying to hire a running back or a wide receivers coach, and they interviewed David Johnson, they interviewed a few others. Like, that was actually Golish and the rest of the offensive staff doing a lot of the interviews, and then Hype kind of come in on the back end with some stuff, and of course they end up promoting Kelsey. But I think you're right. I think that, that's why, he's protective. And then, too, again, I think he's just kind of more of I'm going to have these conversations by myself. That way I can kind of control everything best I can. And then I don't think he's worried about it leaking out or anything. I just think that, he just wants to keep the circle close.
Gonna talk a little Tennessee hoops. Of course, it escapes with a 3-point victory over number 13 Maryland on Sunday night. That's coming up here in just 1 second. Don't forget to stay tuned in with Tennessee in the transfer portal. We have tracking Tennessee Volunteers in the transfer portal, ingoing, outgoing offers, all that and more. That's at Volquest.com. It's continuing to move fast, and you can stay up to date with all of it at Volquest.com.
Debatable on
the portal's moving fast. Tennessee's portal's not moving fast.
Yeah, the portal's moving fast, and Tennessee's throwing out some offers here and there. Again, tracking it all at Volquest.com.
And really, from a recruiting standpoint, in terms of high school kids and guys out there, it's just a fraction of just a couple of real guys, 2-3 guys, maybe Austin that Tennessee is currently involved with. I mean, maybe it grows if somebody becomes available or decides not to sign in the early period, but it's pretty slim pickings right now in terms of what's out there for Tennessee. And I mean, that's because Tennessee's class is done, not because Tennessee can't get involved right there. There's just not a lot of guys out there to recruit right now.
No, there's Arian Carter, who Josh Heupel went in home with on Monday night. My stance has not changed. That's going to be my phrase. My stance has not changed from the war room.
What is your stance?
That Tennessee had momentum. Then there's Tatum T. That's the easiest way for me to say it because I can't pronounce his last name. Not without him explaining it to me like Iyam Aliava did. He called Tennessee. He reached out to Tennessee. His dad's the defensive line coach at Oregon. He's committed to Oregon. He's a defensive lineman. Now, that seems odd, right? So I think that Tennessee's kind of like, what, these conversations? We'll see how interested he is, see if he wants to come on a trip. And my thing is his dad locked in there at Oregon long term, or could he be potentially going somewhere? And that's why these phone calls have been made. We'll see. I don't know. And then of course Taven Gadsden, the Florida State commit, who doesn't look like he will sign until February, and kind of go from there.
And Tennessee had 3 guys on campus for OVs over the weekend. 2 of them commits. The other, junior college defensive tackle Elijah Davis. I know you put a note on the board, but kind of what's your feel for Elijah Davis right now?
I don't think that Tennessee's going to go in that direction. What were you going to say, Hubs?
I was going to say, as for Gadsden, for fans who don't know, I don't know how big of a deal it'll be or not be. He and Larry Johnson III, teammates at Jenkins High School in Savannah, Georgia. And remember, Larry Johnson III he's not multiple years removed from high school. He graduated last May because he didn't get to junior college until July. So they were close teammates. I mean, they went against each other every day in practice. It's not like there's a big gap between the two. Are they close buddies? I don't know that. I mean, they've interacted some on social media and everything else, but if you're Tennessee, that's probably not a bad thing with Gadsden that he's got a former teammate that's going to be here in January as a Vol.
No, that's right. I mean, every little bit helps. And again, Tennessee is constantly flirted with Gadsden all fall. Gadsden's flirted back. Finally, a little bit of movement here with in-home with Rodney Garner, and then I'm sure Tennessee will hold the in-home with Josh Heupel until the month of January when Tennessee would try to get in there late, and then of course have him come here for an official visit late. Now let's turn our attentions to the basketball team because I want to get to this analogy. Rob, I love my movies. Along Came Polly. You ever seen that, Rob?
A million years ago, and I don't.
Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's out there on those Brooklyn. He's out there on those Brooklyn basketball courts, and he says, "Making it rain," and he just rifles it off the backboard. That's basically what we saw in Brooklyn on Sunday.
I liked your tweet where it was a pig putting on lipstick. I thought that was pretty fitting.
I think you guys are being too harsh on this thing. I think you can
offensively. That's what it was. I mean,
it was ugly offensive basketball. But I think that's going to look back, Rob, and that's going to be a solid,
a nice win. I agree with that.
Yeah,
it wasn't pretty. I give you that.
Too many air balls. I think it was more air balls than it just was bricks. When I saw 4 air balls yesterday, I'm like.
Good first half defense, Rob, and then second half defense wasn't great, but still, as Austin and Brent just said, I mean, I think this is a win you can look back on and say that really helped you back later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think when the selection committee is sitting in a room in March, they're going to look at Tennessee's schedule and like the computer numbers for Tennessee and the computer numbers for Maryland. They're not going to break out this box score and say, "Whoa, Tennessee was up 16 with 11 minutes left," and that's not going to be part of the conversation. And I just don't think fans get that or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm with Brent. I think it was a good win. I mean, it would have been a devastating loss had Tennessee, completed the choke job that they looked in the process of putting together. Since you were up 17 at the half, up 16 with 11:28 to go. But to shoot 28% from the floor and 52% from the foul line. And win a basketball game against a top 15 opponent, that says something about your moxie and your grit. And it was not pretty to watch, and offense was ugly. But that is still a good win. If you don't think so, then then tell me you don't know college basketball without telling me you don't know college basketball.
Well, and I didn't mean to imply that Austin and Eric were suggesting it was a bad
What it sounded like.
win, because
No, I didn't. I didn't take that. I didn't think they were saying that either.
That's not what I'm saying. I will ask you this, Rob. Rick Barnes on Monday after he gets on, not what it might mean for him at the end of the year, but when he watches the tape and he looks at it on Monday, does he feel better about getting out of there with the win? Does he feel worse about getting out of there because of the near choke job that they had? Does he feel less pleased with the win after reviewing the tape?
I would be willing to bet the only thing he's going to feel bad about is the defense in the last 10 minutes, where they gave Maryland some stuff that just hadn't been there earlier in the day. He's not. I mean, he's going to look at the offense, but I can promise you what's going to stick out to him are the blown layups. Like, I mean, literally right at the rim. I know Meshack had one or two. Phillips had a bad one off an offensive rebound. Was just right there.
Euro set the tone with a blown bunny on the first possession of the offense. There's about 7 of them.
Yes, and to me, I mean, offensively, I think that's what's going to jump out at him. You just can't miss the bunnies in the paint. But I think overall, again, the defense in the last 10 minutes and the kind of spastic turnovers they had 5 pretty bad ones when they just looked like they were playing without thumbs in about 10 minutes on down, where they didn't give Maryland anything easy in the first half, and they gave them some easy buckets in the second half just because they were sloppy and looked out of sorts with the ball.
Let's talk about Austin's favorite player, Toby Owaka. Had some big minutes.
Fozzie Bear, baby. Fozzie Bear.
Played, 17, 18 minutes? He came up huge, Rob. Big time whenever Tennessee was without Jonas Adu.
He played 17 minutes, had 8 rebounds and 7 points. I mean, Tennessee doesn't win that game the way it works out if he doesn't, come in there. And it was more than just numbers. I mean, that was a physical basketball game, and Tobe belonged. I mean, he wasn't backing down. He was a presence in the paint. And to me, that's probably the most positive story coming out of that game. And I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Coach Barnes said it, but he was unprompted after the game. He's like, "Hey, if I'm Jonas and you're Osha, I'd be worried." and I think he's speaking the truth. He's loved the kid since the preseason, but it was just unclear, if he would have a role. And I tell you what he loves about him is that physical edge that we're talking about. I mean, Tobe knows he has 2 jobs: defense and rebound. And that's all he worries about. He does not get out of his lane.
He is the Dale Davis of this basketball team.
Rick loves that about him.
And nothing makes Rick Barnes happier than added competition, creating more competition on the floor to motivate guys. There's nothing fuels happiness for Rick Barnes more than, wait a minute, I got an extra guy to compete in the practice floor that's going to push somebody for minutes. Because that's the greatest. I mean, that's the greatest competitive edge out there is when you're battling for minutes. So that nothing makes him happier.
Do we think Kane knows who Dale Davis is, Rob?
No.
I'm looking at his reaction, and that's a big no right now.
He's Googling it right now.
No chance. No chance.
I would say,
enlighten me. Tell me who he is.
Played for Rick. He actually didn't play for Rick. He played at Clemson, but it was after Rick was gone. He played in the NBA for years for the Pacers.
For the Pacers. The Davis, they weren't brothers, but they always called them the Davis brothers. Antonio Davis and Dale Davis.
Now I know.
Before we get off of hoops, I really think that not having Santiago and not having Josiah, the combination of them together, that's 5 games now where you've been without one or the other. And I think that's really kind of hurt the development of this team of guys, knowing what their roles are, knowing who they're going to be playing with, what personnel combinations they're going to be on the court most of the time with. I don't think it's like devastating, but I think that's been a bigger issue that the staff has been dealing with than maybe a lot of people appreciate.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it feels like it's going to be. I mean, it's hard not to think Triple J is going to be a lingering thing all year long. I mean, it's just kind of what it looks like, but still. It's impressive that they've accomplished all that without some of those guys so far this year.
Yeah, and Rob, if he can't, I mean, if you can't realistically depend on him, week in and week out, and he's kind of on the shelf, off the shelf, can go limited minutes, can't go, that type of thing. Who is who is the biggest key for stepping into that role long term? Is it Meshack?
I was going to say I would have originally said Phillips, but he's established himself like he was going to eat no matter what. It appears. I mean, he's got So now I think it's Jemai. I think it's Meshack, and they're different type players, but Jemai brings some of the things from a guy like a guard that's a great rebounder, a guy that can guard multiple positions. He can do some of those same things that Josiah did. I don't think he quite has the savvy offensively as a facilitator. I don't think he's quite as good from three, but there's not like a tremendous drop off there. But I don't mean to start anything. I mean, it's not like people aren't already talking about it. But yeah, I think it's really fair to wonder if this just isn't something Josiah deals with every week.
Yeah. Quickly, Rob, on the way out, and I know we're nearly a week out, but any early reports on Arizona, Tennessee back in action on the road at Arizona on Saturday?
I think they're a little. I mean, I'm not an Arizona expert, but I watched a really good chunk of the Maui Classic or Maui Invitational, and I thought they looked great. I mean, just really high octane. I mean, from a battle of styles, it's going to be really intriguing. Not that Tennessee's afraid to go fast. I mean, I think Rick likes to play with some tempo, but offensively, Arizona wants to push it. And that will be a real clash to see, if they can get out in transition, what Tennessee can limit them for offensively. They are really good in the paint. They got some skilled big guys that will give Tennessee problems. That's where the matchup worries would start for me. But then they win in Maui and look fantastic. They go on the road and lose to what had been a pretty bad Utah team in their first Pac-12 game. So obviously not perfect, but I think it'll be a really high level basketball game.
So no midweek game for Tennessee basketball. It will be back in action again on the road at Arizona on Saturday. Tennessee in the transfer portal. You keep track of it all, ingoing, outgoing, offers, all that stuff at Volquest.com. Orange Bowl practice, it begins later this week, and some of those early enrollees will be here and practicing, so a whole lot to get information on, and you can catch it all at Volquest.com. $10 for a one-year subscription to Volquest.com. It's the perfect Christmas gift. So go ahead and get that Vol fan in your life, a subscription for 1 year at Volquest.com for only $10. For Awesome Prize, Spread Hubs, Rob Lewis, I am Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for joining us here on this Tuesday edition of the Volquest Podcast.